What if Rhaegar Targaryen survived the Trident and faced Robert at King's Landing? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The Trident runs red with blood as two armies clash across the Ruby Ford. Banners snap in the wind above the carnage. Golden dragons face crowned stags, while ravens circle overhead. The air fills with the screams of dying men and the crash of steel on steel. This is the moment that will decide the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen sits astride his black destrier, silver hair flowing beneath his helm. The Dragon Prince surveys the battle with violet eyes, watching as his loyalist forces struggle against Robert Baratheon's rebel army. Across the field, the young Lord of Storm's End towers above his men, his antlered helm catching the afternoon sun. Robert's warhammer drips with blood as he cuts through the Targaryen ranks like a man possessed. The battle has raged since dawn. Both armies bleed as they fight for their beliefs. The loyalists fight for their prince and the Iron Throne. The rebels fight for love and honor, for a girl stolen away in the night. Yet neither side can claim victory. The tide turns back and forth across the muddy ground like the river itself. Rhaegar knows what he must do. His men need to see their prince in the thick of battle. He spurs his horse forward, silver armor gleaming as he rides toward the enemy lines. His sword rings as he draws it from its sheath. The loyalist forces cheer as their prince joins the fray. Dragons carved into his breastplate seem to breathe with each rise and fall of his chest. Meanwhile, Robert smashes through the loyalist ranks with terrible fury. His warhammer crushes helms and shatters shields. Blood covers his face as he fights with the rage of a man who has lost everything. Lyanna's name escapes his lips with each killing blow. The rebel army follows their leader deeper into the enemy host. The two forces swirl around each other in deadly combat. Steel rings against steel. Men scream and fall. Horses rear and charge. Banners fall only to be raised again by desperate hands. The Trident claims dozens of bodies as the current carries them downstream. Then it happens. Across the battlefield, violet eyes meet blue. Rhaegar and Robert spot each other through the chaos of war. The prince and the rebel lord lock gazes across 30 yards of blood-soaked ground. Everything else fades away. This moment has been building since the day Lyanna Stark disappeared. Robert roars his battle cry and spurs his horse forward. His antlered helm bobs as he charges through his own men. The rebels part before their lord like wheat before the scythe. His warhammer swings in deadly arcs as he cuts a path toward the Dragon Prince. Rhaegar meets the charge with calm determination. His black destrier surges forward as he raises his sword. The rubies in his armor catch the light like drops of blood. Behind him, loyal knights follow their prince into what may be their final charge. The two armies slow their fighting to watch. Lords and common soldiers alike stop to witness this duel that will decide everything. Even the ravens seem to pause in their circling as predator and prey prepare to meet. Robert's warhammer whistles through the air. The weapon that has killed so many loyalist knights now seeks the most prized target of all. His blue eyes burn with fury as he closes the distance. This is for Lyanna. This is for love. This is for justice. Rhaegar's blade meets the hammer's shaft in a shower of sparks. The impact sends vibrations up both men's arms. Their horses dance and wheel as the fighters struggle for advantage. Steel scrapes against steel as they circle each other in deadly ballet. Robert strikes again, bringing his hammer down in a crushing overhand blow. Rhaegar deflects it with his blade, feeling the tremendous force behind the strike. The young lord is stronger than expected. His rage gives him terrible power. Again and again they clash. Robert's hammer seeks to crush while Rhaegar's sword darts and weaves like a silver snake. Both men bleed from minor cuts as their weapons find gaps in armor. Neither gives ground, neither shows mercy. The armies watch in tense silence. This single combat will determine which banner flies over the 7 kingdoms, dragon or stag, love or duty, madness or justice. Everything depends on these next few moments. Robert raises his warhammer for another crushing blow. His antlered helm gleams as he prepares to strike. This is his favored attack, the overhand strike that has won him so many victories. His blue eyes narrow as he focuses all his rage into this single moment. But Rhaegar has watched this pattern. He has seen how Robert telegraphs this particular strike. The prince shifts his weight at the last second, moving his body just enough to avoid the hammer's crushing force. The weapon whistles past his helm, missing by inches. In that moment of overextension, Rhaegar strikes. His blade punches through a gap in Robert's armor, sliding between the plates to find the flesh beneath. The steel pierces the young lord's heart with surgical precision. Robert's eyes widen in shock as he feels the cold metal enter his chest. For a heartbeat, time stands still. Robert stares at the sword protruding from his chest, unable to comprehend what has happened. His warhammer slips from nerveless fingers and crashes to the ground. Blood bubbles from his lips as he tries to speak Lyanna's name one last time. Then, Robert Baratheon falls. The young lord of Storm's End topples from his horse and hits the muddy ground with a wet thud. His antlered helm rolls away, revealing the face of a boy who dreamed of love and died for it. His blue eyes stare sightlessly at the sky as his blood mingles with the Trident's waters. Silence falls across the battlefield like a physical weight. Both armies stare in stunned disbelief at the fallen lord. The rebels cannot believe their champion has fallen. The loyalists cannot believe their prince has won. Then the cheering begins. The Targaryen forces roar their approval as they see Robert's body. Their prince has slain the rebel leader. Victory is within their grasp. Dragon banners wave as the loyalist army surges forward with renewed vigor. The rebel forces break. Without Robert to lead them, they lose heart and begin to retreat. Some throw down their weapons in despair. Others flee toward the river, seeking escape from the slaughter that follows. The rebellion dies with its champion. Rhaegar sits motionless atop his destrier, staring down at Robert's corpse. There is no joy in his violet eyes, only the weight of what he has done. He has killed a man barely older than himself, a man who fought for love, however misguided. The prince understands the terrible cost of victory. He dismounts and kneels beside Robert's body. With careful hands, he closes the dead lord's eyes and removes the crown from the antlered helm. The small circlet of gold feels impossibly heavy in his gauntleted hands. This belonged to a king's brother. Now it belongs to a ghost. The sound of hoofbeats interrupts his thoughts. Rhaegar looks up to see a northern lord racing across the battlefield. Even at a distance, he recognizes the direwolf banners. Eddard Stark has come searching for his friend. Ned's grey eyes find Robert's body and fill with grief. The young lord of Winterfell dismounts and rushes to his fallen brother in arms. His face twists with anguish as he cradles Robert's head in his lap. The rebellion was as much his as anyone's, and now it lies broken at his feet. For a moment, the dragon prince and the young wolf stare at each other across Robert's corpse. There is no hatred in their eyes, only shared understanding of loss. Both have paid terrible prices for this war. Both have lost more than they gained. Ned's voice cracks as he speaks. He loved her. Rhaegar nods slowly. I know. The Northern Lord gathers Robert's body with gentle hands. There will be time for grief later. Now he must lead the retreat before the loyalist cavalry arrives. The rebellion may be broken, but some honor can still be salvaged from the wreckage. As Ned rides away with his burden, Rhaegar remounts his destrier. Ravens already circle overhead, preparing to carry news of this victory to every corner of the realm. King Aerys will celebrate, the rebels will mourn, and somewhere in a tower in Dawn, Lyanna Stark will learn that her champion has fallen. The Dragon Prince raises Robert's crown toward the sky, letting the dying sunlight catch its golden surface. This small circlet represents everything that has changed in the space of a few heartbeats. The rebellion is broken. The throne is secure. Yet Rhaegar feels no triumph, only the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. Soon ravens will fly. Soon the realm will know. Soon everything will change. The battle of the Trident is over. The dragon has won. The sun sets over the Trident, casting long shadows across a field littered with the dead. Rhaegar walks among the fallen, his silver hair stained with blood and mud. His violet eyes take in the carnage with growing weight. Hundreds of men lie still on the churned earth. Their banners tell the story of a realm divided. Dragons and stags, wolves and falcons, all reduced to corpses in the dying light. The Dragon Prince stops beside the body of a young knight bearing Tully colours. The boy cannot be older than 16. His face is peaceful in death, as if he merely sleeps beneath the darkening sky. Rhaegar wonders what dreams this child held, what girl he hoped to marry, what songs he loved. All of it ended by steel and politics he likely never understood. "The price of victory, Your Grace," comes a familiar voice behind him. Sir Barristan Selmy approaches, his white cloak torn and bloodied, but his bearing still proud. The knight's weathered face shows the strain of battle, yet his eyes remain clear and steady. Rhaegar turns to face his most trusted protector. "Is this victory, Sir Barristan? I see only waste." "You see what every good king must see," the old knight replies. "The cost of the choices we make. Robert Baratheon lies dead because he chose rebellion. These men lie dead because they chose to follow him. You live because you chose duty over doubt." The prince nods slowly, understanding the wisdom in those words, yet still feeling their weight. He has done his duty to the realm and the crown. He has ended a rebellion that threatened to tear the Seven Kingdoms apart. Yet the taste of victory is bitter in his mouth. Around them, the loyalist army begins the grim work of collecting the dead. Soldiers strip armor from fallen enemies, while gathering their own comrades for proper burial. The wounded cry out for help or for their mothers. Maesters move between them with needle and thread, trying to save what lives they can. "We must send word to the capital," Rhaegar says at last. "My father will want to know of our victory." Sir Barristan's expression grows troubled. "And what of the rebellion, Your Grace? Stark and Arryn still command significant forces. They may seek to continue the fight in Robert's name." Rhaegar considers this as he gazes toward the northern horizon, where the rebel forces retreated. Eddard Stark showed honor even in defeat, taking Robert's body rather than leaving it for the crows. Such men do not surrender easily, even when their cause seems lost. "Then we must end it," the prince decides. "Send ravens to King's Landing. Tell my father of our victory, but also request his guidance on how to proceed. The realm bleeds, and bleeding kingdoms do not prosper." The old knight bows deeply. "It shall be done, Your Grace." Meanwhile, miles to the north, Eddard Stark leads the remnants of the rebel army in desperate retreat. Robert's body lies wrapped in his own cloak, secured to a pack horse that follows close behind Ned's mount. The young Lord of Winterfell's grey eyes are red with grief, but his voice remains steady as he issues orders to his remaining commanders. "We make for Riverrun," he tells them. "Lord Tully's castle is well fortified and provisioned. We can regroup there and plan our next move." Lord Roose Bolton rides beside him, his pale eyes calculating. "And what move is that, my lord?" Our cause died with Robert on that field. The Dragon Prince has won a decisive victory. Ned's jaw tightens at the words, but he does not deny their truth. Robert believed in justice. That belief does not die with him. We continue the fight until Lyanna is returned, or until we join our friend in death. Some of the northern lords nod grimly at these words. Others exchange worried glances. Without Robert's charisma and strength, the rebellion feels less certain, more desperate. Yet they follow Ned Stark because honor demands it, and honor is all they have left. Elsewhere, in the towering Eyrie, Jon Arryn receives a raven bearing dire news. The Lord of the Vale reads the message twice before setting it aside with shaking hands. His ward Robert is dead. The boy he raised from childhood, the young lord he helped shape into a man, lies cold on some distant battlefield. The defender of the Vale stares out at the mountains surrounding his ancient seat. Winter is coming, and with it, a war that may consume everything he has spent his life protecting. Yet he cannot abandon Ned Stark now, not when the young wolf needs him most. Maester Coleman, he calls to his elderly adviser, send ravens to all our bannermen. Tell them to ready their forces. The rebellion continues, and the Vale must stand with honor. At Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister reads similar news with very different emotions. The Lord of the West sits in his solar, golden hair gleaming in the candlelight as he considers the implications of Robert's death. On his desk lie detailed reports of the battle's outcome, carried by his swiftest riders. The old lion's green eyes gleam with calculation. Robert's rebellion offered opportunities for advancement, but a losing rebellion offers nothing but the headsman's block. With the Dragon Prince victorious and Robert dead, the political landscape has shifted dramatically. His steward enters with another report. My lord, our spies report that Prince Rhaegar has sent ravens to King's Landing. He seeks the king's guidance on how to proceed against the remaining rebels. Tywin nods thoughtfully. This presents interesting possibilities. A mad king and a victorious prince may not see eye to eye on matters of clemency and justice. Such tensions often create opportunities for those wise enough to exploit them. Double our watch on the roads, he commands. I want to know every message that passes between King's Landing and the prince's army, and prepare our own ravens. We may need to act quickly when the time comes. In the Red Keep, King Aerys II receives the news of victory with wild celebration. The Mad King dances around his throne room, his unwashed hair flying as he shouts his joy to the assembled court. His fingernails, grown long and sharp, click against the armrests of the Iron Throne as he settles into his seat. The Dragon Prince has triumphed, he declares to the nervous courtiers. Robert the usurper lies dead, and all traitors shall burn. Burn them all, I say. Let wildfire cleanse the realm of rebellion. Grandmaster Pycelle bows carefully, his chains jingling. Your Grace, Prince Rhaegar requests guidance on how to proceed. The remaining rebel forces— Let them come! Aerys interrupts, spittle flying from his cracked lips. Let them come to King's Landing so I can burn them personally. My son has done well, but the work is not finished. Not until every traitor burns. Yet even as he celebrates, doubt creeps into the Mad King's paranoid mind. Rhaegar has won a great victory. The prince commands the loyalty of powerful lords and seasoned knights. Such success breeds ambition, and ambitious sons sometimes grow tired of waiting for their fathers to die. The king's celebration grows more manic as these thoughts consume him. He shouts for wildfire to be brought to the throne room, demanding to see the green flames dance. Several courtiers quietly slip away, unwilling to witness another of their king's destructive episodes. Back at the Trident, Rhaegar finishes dictating his message to the capital. The Raven Master seals the letter with the prince's personal seal and attaches it to his swiftest bird. The black raven disappears into the gathering darkness, carrying words that will reach the Red Keep within days. Sir Barristan returns to the prince's side as the first stars appear overhead. "The men are ready to march, Your Grace. Shall we pursue the fleeing rebels?" Rhaegar stares towards the north, where Stark and his survivors have vanished into the night. Part of him wants to end this quickly, to catch them while they are weak and scattered. Yet another part recognizes that cornered wolves fight fiercest of all. No, he decides finally. Let them reach River Run. Let them think they have time to plan and regroup. When we move against them, it will be with overwhelming force and clear purpose. This rebellion will end, but it will end properly. The old knight nods approvingly. "Wisdom beyond your years, Your Grace." As the loyalist camp settles for the night, Rhaegar walks alone to where Robert's blood still stains the muddy ground. The young Baratheon's final words echo in his memory. Lyanna's name, spoken with love and desperation. Tomorrow the prince will march north to end a rebellion, but tonight he mourns a rival who fought for the same woman they both claimed to love. Ravens fly through the darkness, carrying news that will reshape the political landscape of Westeros. Victory and defeat, celebration and grief, calculation and madness, all set in motion by a single sword thrust at the Ruby Ford. The dragon has won the day, but the war for the realm's future has only just begun. In castles across the Seven Kingdoms, powerful lords read dispatches and make choices that will echo through generations. Some will bend the knee, others will resist. All will be tested in the fires of what is to come. Rhaegar looks up at the stars and wonders what his victory truly costs. The Iron Throne awaits his return, but the price of sitting it grows heavier with each passing hour. He has saved his family's dynasty, but at what cost to his soul? The weight of victory settles on his shoulders like a cloak of lead, and the Dragon Prince finally understands that some burdens never grow lighter, only more familiar. 3 days after the Trident, Rhaegar's host begins its march toward King's Landing. 10,000 men move south in disciplined columns, their banners snapping proudly in the morning wind. Dragon standards lead the way, while captured rebel banners trail behind as trophies of victory. The army's mood is triumphant, despite the losses they have suffered. The Dragon Prince rides at the head of his forces, silver hair gleaming beneath his helm. His black destrier steps carefully along the muddy road, picking its way around puddles left by recent rains. Behind him ride his most trusted commanders, Sir Barristan Selmy, Prince Lewin Martell, and Lord Connington. Their faces show the satisfaction of soldiers who have won a hard-fought victory. "Your Grace," Lord Connington says as they crest a small hill. The men sing as they march. They know they follow a victorious prince back to the capital in triumph. Rhaegar nods, but his expression remains thoughtful. Victory at the Trident has secured his family's throne, yet it has also raised difficult questions about what comes next. The rebellion may be broken, but rebels still live. Men like Eddard Stark don't surrender easily, and cornered wolves often fight fiercer than free ones. "Send outriders ahead," the prince commands. "I want to know about any rebel forces between here and King's Landing. We march in victory, but we must not march into ambush." Meanwhile, far to the north, Ned Stark pushes his exhausted forces toward River Run. The remnants of the rebel army move like ghosts along the backroads, avoiding the main highways where loyalist patrols might discover them. 3 days of hard marching have taken their toll on men already demoralized by defeat. The young Lord of Winterfell rides near the rear of the column, constantly looking back for signs of pursuit. Robert's wrapped body still follows on its pack horse, a grim reminder of how quickly fortune can change in war. Every step takes them further from the battlefield where their cause died, yet Ned cannot bring himself to abandon the fight entirely. Lord Roose Bolton approaches on his pale mare, his colourless eyes unreadable. "My lord, the men grow restless. They whisper that the war is over, that we should bend the knee before more die. Ned's grey eyes harden. The war ends when Lyanna comes home, not before. And if she does not wish to come home? Bolton asks quietly. What if the rumours of willing abduction prove true? The question strikes Ned like a physical blow, but he does not let it show on his face. Then we will learn the truth from her own lips. Until that day, we fight. At Storm's End, ravens bring word that changes everything. Stannis Baratheon stands in his brother's solar, reading the dispatch that announces Robert's death. The 16-year-old lord's face remains impassive, but his knuckles whiten as he grips the parchment. His brother is dead. His liege lord and best friend lies cold on some distant battlefield. Maester Cresson hovers nearby, his aged face creased with concern. My lord, the castle garrison awaits your orders. Word has spread among the men that Prince Robert has fallen. Stannis sets the message aside and stares out at the narrow sea. Ships bob in the harbour below, their sails furled as they wait for favourable winds. The Baratheon fleet could carry what remains of Robert's supporters to safety across the water, or it could sail north to continue the fight. How many ships can we ready for immediate departure? He asks. 30 warships and twice that number in smaller vessels, my lord. Enough to carry several thousand men if needed. Stannis nods curtly. Robert died fighting for justice and love. The least his brother can do is ensure that fight continues. Send word to the captains. We sail north within the week. The rebellion does not end with one man's death. At Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister receives regular updates on the changing situation. His solar fills with maps and reports as he calculates the new political landscape. Servants come and go with fresh intelligence, while his castellan waits for instructions. The Lord of the West traces roads on his map with one finger, following the likely path of Rhaegar's march. The prince moves south with overwhelming force, he muses aloud. The remaining rebels scatter like leaves before the storm. Yet storms can change direction, without warning. His brother Kevan enters with another report. The latest word from our agents, my lord. Prince Rhaegar offers amnesty to any rebel lord who bends the knee. Several minor houses have already accepted his terms. Tywin's green eyes glitter with interest. A victorious prince offering mercy shows confidence, but it also shows pragmatism. Such leaders understand that conquest means nothing without consolidation. This Targaryen may prove more reasonable than his father. Double our patrols along the borders, he commands, and prepare ravens to all our bannermen. We may need to move quickly when the time comes. Rhaegar's army makes good time along the King's Road. The main highway stretches south like a stone serpent, leading them through familiar territory toward the capital. Along the way, they pass burned villages and abandoned farms, scars left by the rebellion's passage. The prince orders his men to leave what coin they can for the survivors, knowing that gold speaks louder than apologies. On the third day, they reach Harrenhal. The massive castle looms above them like a broken crown, its melted towers reaching toward grey skies. Rhaegar calls a halt and rides ahead to examine the fortress more closely. The gates stand open and unguarded. No banners fly from the twisted towers. Sir Barristan joins him at the entrance. The castle appears abandoned, Your Grace. Lord Whent's forces likely fled when they heard news of the Trident. Rhaegar dismounts and walks through the gates into the vast courtyard beyond. Memories flood back of the great tournament held here less than a year ago. He remembers the crowds cheering as he unseated opponent after opponent. He remembers crowning Lyanna Stark as Queen of Love and Beauty instead of his lawful wife. That single act set in motion all the events that followed. Your Grace, Sir Barristan's voice breaks through his reverie. We camp here tonight, Rhaegar decides. Send word to the surrounding lords. Any who wish amnesty may come to Harrenhal and bend the knee. Those who refuse will face the consequences of continued rebellion. In the Red Keep, King Aerys receives reports of his son's progress with growing agitation. The Mad King paces his throne room like a caged animal, his overgrown fingernails clicking against stone pillars. Every new dispatch about Rhaegar's march brings fresh paranoia about his heir's intentions. "He offers amnesty without consulting me," the king shrieks to his cowering courtiers. "He makes decisions that belong to the crown alone. Does my son think to rule in my place?" Grandmaster Pycelle bows carefully. "Your Grace, the prince merely seeks to end the rebellion efficiently. Surely his success serves the realm's interests." "Whose interests?" Aerys demands, spittle flying from his cracked lips. "The realm's or his own? Victory makes princes ambitious, old man. I know how their minds work, because I was once young myself." The king whirls toward his guards. "Send ravens to my son. Tell him I command his immediate return to King's Landing. No more pardons, no more mercy. Let him remember who wears the crown." That evening at Harrenhal, Rhaegar receives his father's latest message with growing concern. The tone grows more erratic with each dispatch, the commands more unreasonable. The prince shows the letter to Sir Barristan, who reads it with a troubled expression. "Your Grace, the king seems overwrought by recent events. Perhaps the stress of war has affected his judgment." Rhaegar nods grimly. He has suspected for some time that his father's madness grows worse with each passing year. The king's paranoia and violence have become legendary throughout the realm, making enemies where there should be allies. "We cannot return to King's Landing yet," the prince decides. "Too many rebels remain in the field. If we abandon the campaign now, they will simply regroup and strike again. And if the king grows angry at this delay?" Rhaegar stares out at Harrenhal's twisted towers, thinking of tournaments and crowns of winter roses. "Then we will deal with that when the time comes. The realm's needs must come before any one man's wishes, even if that man wears a crown." As night falls over the ruined castle, lords begin arriving to seek amnesty. Some come with full retinues and proud banners. Others arrive alone and in secret, seeking to save their houses from destruction. Each must kneel before the Dragon Prince and swear renewed fealty to the Iron Throne. Rhaegar grants pardons freely, but not carelessly. He listens to each lord's story and weighs their sincerity. Some receive full restoration of lands and titles. Others face lesser penalties, but keep their lives. All leave understanding that the prince offers mercy only once. Meanwhile, word spreads throughout the realm that Rhaegar Targaryen shows both strength and wisdom in victory. Lords who might have continued fighting begin to reconsider their positions. The dragon's mercy proves more compelling than the dragon's wrath, and rebellion begins to seem less attractive with each passing day. Yet in King's Landing, the Mad King grows more suspicious with each report of his son's success. He sees conspiracy in every act of mercy and treason, in every moment of delay. The paranoia that has consumed him for years now focuses entirely on the son who dared to win victories without permission. Ravens fly between Harrenhal and the capital, carrying increasingly tense messages. Father and son speak past each other in formal language that barely conceals growing distrust. The realm may be healing from rebellion, but the royal family itself grows more fractured with each exchange. Rhaegar stands on Harrenhal's walls and looks south toward King's Landing. Soon he must return to face his father and explain his choices. The thought fills him with dread, for he begins to understand that his greatest battle may not be with rebels, but with the madness that sits the Iron Throne. The Dragon Prince has won the war, but he may yet lose the peace. A week after Harrenhal, Rhaegar's host arrives within sight of King's Landing. The great city sprawls before them like a jeweled crown, its walls and towers gleaming in the afternoon sun. The Red Keep rises above it all, crimson stone walls standing proud against the grey sky. 10,000 loyalist soldiers make camp on the fields outside the capital, their dragon banners snapping in the wind. The Dragon Prince sits his destrier and stares at the city of his birth. Smoke rises from countless chimneys while ships crowd the harbour below. This should be a moment of triumph, a victorious heir returning home after crushing rebellion. Yet something feels wrong. The gates remain closed. No welcoming party rides out to greet him. Even the city's bells stay silent. Your Grace, Sir Barristan approaches carefully. Shall I ride ahead and announce your arrival to the king? Rhaegar nods slowly. Tell my father that his son has returned victorious. Request an audience at his earliest convenience. The old knight bows and spurs his horse toward the city gates. Rhaegar watches him go, unease growing in his chest like a cold weight. His father's recent letters have grown increasingly erratic and suspicious. The Mad King seems to view his son's victory not as triumph, but as threat. Meanwhile, within the Red Keep's throne room, King Aerys II paces before the Iron Throne like a caged beast. His unwashed hair hangs in greasy tangles, while his overgrown fingernails click against stone pillars. The assembled courtiers watch nervously as their king mutters to himself about dragons and usurpers. He comes with an army, the Mad King hisses to no one in particular. 10,000 swords at his back, they say. Why does a loyal son need so many soldiers? Why does he camp outside my walls like a conqueror? Grand Maester Pycelle shuffles forward, his chains jingling softly. Your Grace, Prince Rhaegar has just won a great victory for the crown. Surely he brings his army home to rest and refit after their battles. Rest? Aerys whirls on the old master, spittle flying from his cracked lips. He rests when I tell him to rest. He serves when I command service. Instead, he offers pardons without permission and makes kings of rebels. At the back of the throne room, Lord Varys watches the king's tantrum with calculating eyes. The spider has served many masters in his time, and he recognizes the signs of a regime in its final days. Mad kings rarely stay on thrones long, especially when sane princes wait outside their gates with armies. Perhaps, Varys suggests in his soft voice, your Grace might grant the prince an audience? A loving father's welcome for a victorious son. Aerys turns his wild eyes on the eunuch. Love? Love! Love is what ambitious sons use to justify patricide. No, Spider. My son will learn patience. Let him wait outside like any other petitioner. Near the Iron Throne, Sir Jaime Lannister stands in his white cloak and golden armor. The 17-year-old knight's handsome face remains carefully neutral, but his green eyes betray his inner turmoil. His father Tywin marches from the west with unknown intentions. His prince brother approaches from the north with righteous purpose. Soon the young knight may face impossible choices between family loyalty and sworn duty. At River Run, Ned Stark receives Stannis Baratheon's message with grim satisfaction. The Lord of Winterfell stands in Lord Tully's solar, alongside Jon Arryn and Hoster Tully himself. Maps cover every surface while reports pile high on wooden tables. The atmosphere feels desperate but determined. Stannis sails north with 30 ships, Ned reports. He carries 3,000 men and pledges to continue Robert's fight. Jon Arryn nods approvingly. The boy has his brother's courage, if not his size. With Baratheon forces and our combined strength, we might yet break the loyalist siege of the capital. Hoster Tully, his red hair streaked with grey, looks doubtful. Against Prince Rhaegar's 10,000? The numbers do not favour us, my lords. Perhaps we should consider the prince's offer of amnesty while it still stands. Never. Ned's voice carries the steel of winter. We swore an oath to rescue Lyanna and punish those who wronged her. That oath does not end with one defeat. The young Lord of Winterfell stares at the map of King's Landing, calculating distances and defences. Robert died believing in justice. Ned will not dishonour that belief by surrendering when victory might still be possible. Meanwhile, leagues to the west, Tywin Lannister's host marches along the Gold Road with banners concealed. 15,000 men move in perfect formation, while their lord rides at their head on a destrier as golden as his hair. The Lord of the West has made his choice at last, though he keeps that choice hidden until the proper moment. Sir Kevan Lannister rides beside his brother, his weathered face thoughtful. The men ask where we march, my lord. Shall I tell them we go to support the crown? Tywin's green eyes glitter with amusement. Tell them we march to ensure peace in the realm. That should suffice for now. The truth is more complex. Tywin has decided that the Targaryen dynasty serves his purposes, but only if led by a sane prince rather than a mad king. Rhaegar has shown wisdom and mercy in victory, qualities that make for useful allies. Aerys has shown only paranoia and violence, traits that make for dangerous enemies. Back at King's Landing, Sir Barristan returns from the gates with troubling news. He finds Rhaegar still staring at the city walls, lost in thought about the strange welcome he has received. "Your Grace," the old knight reports carefully, "the king refuses to see you. The gate guards carry orders to admit no one from your army. Not even yourself." Rhaegar's violet eyes darken with understanding. "He fears me." "It would seem so, Your Grace. Grand Maester Pycelle sends word that the king considers any approach to the Red Keep an act of rebellion." The Dragon Prince feels the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders like a lead cloak. His father's madness has finally reached the point where even filial loyalty becomes treason. The realm suffers under an insane king who sees enemies in every shadow, yet that king remains Rhaegar's father and rightful liege. "Post guards around our camp," he orders, "and send word to Lord Stark and the other rebels. Tell them Prince Rhaegar seeks a peaceful resolution to this conflict." Within the Red Keep, Varys moves carefully through shadowed corridors. The Spider has survived many changes of regime by knowing when to adapt and when to act. Tonight requires both skills in equal measure. He slips into Pycelle's chambers, where the Grand Maester hunches over scrolls and potions. "My dear Maester," Varys purrs softly, "surely you see how this madness must end. The king grows more dangerous with each passing hour." Pycelle looks up nervously. "Lord Varys, such words border on treason. The king may be difficult, but he remains our sovereign. And when his madness destroys the city, when his paranoia burns the realm, will titles matter then?" Varys leans closer. The prince offers stability. The king offers only chaos. The old master's hands shake as he considers this. Everyone in the Red Keep knows the truth about their king's condition, though few dare speak it aloud. Aerys II has become a danger to himself and everyone around him. As night falls over King's Landing, ravens fly in all directions. Messages carry news of armies converging on the capital, while political alliances shift like sand in the wind. The rebel fleet approaches from the south. Tywin's host marches from the west. Ned Stark's forces move down from the north. In his pavilion outside the city, Rhaegar reads reports and makes difficult choices. Every option before him leads to civil war, either against his father or against the realm's rebels. Victory at the Trident should have ended the conflict, but it has only transformed rebellion into something more dangerous. Prince Lewin Martell enters the tent with fresh intelligence. "Your Grace, our scouts report ships on the horizon. Lord Stannis's fleet, most likely." Rhaegar sets aside his letters and stares at the map of King's Landing spread before him. Red pins mark loyalist positions, while black pins show rebel movements. Soon this map will be covered in markers, as the realm's great armies converge on a single point. "How long until they arrive?" he asks. 2 days. Perhaps 3, if the winds prove unfavorable." The Dragon Prince nods grimly. 2 days to prevent a war that could shatter the 7 kingdoms. 2 days to choose between a mad father and a burning realm. 2 days to decide whether duty lies with blood or with justice. Outside the pavilion, soldiers sharpen swords and check armor. They know great battles approach, though they cannot guess how strange these battles will prove. Soon, Brother may fight brother, while fathers face sons across fields of blood. In the Red Keep, Aerys orders wildfire brought to the throne room. The Mad King wants to watch green flames dance while his enemies approach. He speaks of burning them all, rebels, loyalists, and anyone else who dares threaten his reign. His paranoia has consumed the last traces of sanity. Jaime Lannister watches this display with growing horror. The young knight has sworn to protect the king's life, but what happens when that life threatens countless others? His white cloak feels heavier with each mad pronouncement from the Iron Throne. As midnight approaches, Rhaegar steps outside his tent and looks up at the stars. Somewhere beyond those distant lights, the gods watch mortal struggles with cold indifference. Tomorrow will bring choices that echo through history. Tonight brings only the weight of destiny and the knowledge that some burdens cannot be shared. The gathering storm prepares to break over King's Landing, and the Dragon Prince stands at its center, unsure whether he fights to save his family's throne or to save the realm from his family's madness. Dawn breaks grey and cold over King's Landing as Rhaegar's forces begin establishing siege lines around the great city. 10,000 men spread across the fields outside the walls, their dragon banners marking positions from the Blackwater to the northern gates. Yet this siege feels different from any other in the realm's history. The prince who commands it seeks not conquest, but reconciliation with the madman who sits the Iron Throne. Rhaegar stands atop a small hill overlooking the city, his violet eyes taking in the defensive preparations within. Smoke rises from countless chimneys while people move like ants along the battlements. His own people, subjects he has sworn to protect, huddle behind those walls in growing fear. Your Grace, Lord Connington approaches with reports from the siege engineers. The men ask about starving out the city. Standard siege tactics would cut off all food supplies within the fortnight. The Dragon Prince shakes his head firmly. No, we do not make war on children and shopkeepers. Leave the supply roads open for merchants carrying food. We besiege the Red Keep, not the innocent. But Your Grace, such mercy prolongs the siege indefinitely. The defenders can hold out for months if provisions continue reaching them. Rhaegar turns to face his commander, silver hair catching the morning light. Then we find another way. I will not become the king who starved his own subjects into submission. Meanwhile, within the Red Keep's throne room, King Aerys receives reports of the siege, with manic glee mixed with growing paranoia. The Mad King sits upon the Iron Throne, his overgrown fingernails scratching against the ancient metal as he contemplates his son's betrayal. "Let him come!" Aerys shrieks to the assembled courtiers. "Let the Dragon Prince try to take what belongs to his father. I have wildfire enough to burn this city 10 times over before I yield one stone to a usurper." Grand Maester Pycelle bows nervously. "Your Grace, perhaps we might negotiate. Prince Rhaegar surely seeks only to end the rebellion, not to harm his loving father." The king's wild eyes fix on the old maester like a hawk spotting prey. "Love? You speak of love while my son camps outside with swords drawn? No, old fool. This is ambition wrapped in pretty words. But I know how to deal with ambitious princes." At the back of the throne room, Jaime Lannister watches this exchange with growing unease. The 17-year-old knight has served as King's Guard for months now, but nothing prepared him for the reality of protecting a madman. Every day brings fresh horrors as Aerys's paranoia consumes what little sanity remains. The king rises from his throne and begins pacing like a caged animal. "Seal the gates! Bar every entrance! Let no one enter or leave without my personal command! And bring me pyromancers! I want to see green flames dance while my enemies wait outside." In the Tower of the Hand, Elia Martell sits with her 2 young children in chambers that have become a prison. Princess Rhaenys, barely 3 years old, plays with wooden toys while baby Aegon sleeps in his mother's arms. The Dornish princess's dark eyes show the strain of recent weeks as news of war and madness reaches even these protected chambers. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. A servant enters with the day's meagre meal: bread, cheese, and watered wine. The portions grow smaller each day, as the king's paranoia extends even to his own family. "My lady," the servant whispers carefully, "there are rumors that Prince Rhaegar camps outside the walls. Some say he comes to rescue the city from madness." Elia holds her infant son closer and prays silently to the gods of dawn. Her husband fights outside, while her children remain trapped within, caught between a mad king and a war that grows stranger each day. On the black water, Stannis Baratheon's fleet appears like storm clouds on the southern horizon. 30 warships bear down on the capital's harbour, while Rhaegar's own river forces scramble to meet them. The young Lord of Storm's End stands on his flagship's deck, his 16-year-old face set in grim determination. "Signal the attack," he commands his captain. "We break through to the harbour and land our forces behind the siege lines." The Battle of Blackwater Bay begins with the crash of ram ships against defensive chains. Stannis leads from the front, despite his youth, his sword flashing as his men board enemy vessels. The harbour erupts in flame and steel as 2 fleets clash in the shadow of the great city. Rhaegar watches the naval battle from his command post, calculating costs and consequences. Each ship that burns takes sailors to watery graves. Each sword that falls spills more blood in a conflict that should never have begun. "Your Grace," Sir Barristan reports urgently, "Lord Stannis' forces have broken through our river defences. His men land on the southern shore in significant numbers." The Dragon Prince nods grimly. "Pull back our river forces to prevent further losses. We cannot afford to bleed men in meaningless skirmishes." As night falls over the siege, a hooded figure slips through the camp's outer perimeters. Lord Varys moves like a shadow between the tents, his soft shoes making no sound on the muddy ground. The spider has come to speak with the prince about matters too dangerous for ravens or formal meetings. Guards challenge him at the command tent, but the eunuch produces tokens that grant him passage. Inside, he finds Rhaegar studying maps by candlelight, planning assaults he hopes never to launch. "Your Grace," Varys purrs softly, "I come bearing word from within the city." Rhaegar looks up sharply. "Lord Varys? How did you pass through the siege lines undetected?" "A spider finds many ways through webs, Your Grace. But my methods matter less than my message. Your father grows more dangerous with each passing hour. He speaks openly of burning the city rather than yielding it." The prince sets aside his maps and fixes the spymaster with violet eyes. "You risk much coming here. Aerys would name this treason. The king names everything treason these days, even loyalty. That is why I come to you." Varys leans forward conspiratorially. "The city holds thousands of innocents. Children sleep in their beds, while a madman plots to burn them alive. Surely a wise prince sees where his true duty lies?" Rhaegar considers these words carefully. His father's madness has reached the point where protecting the crown means protecting the realm from the crown. Yet patricide remains the blackest sin in the eyes of gods and men. "What would you have me do?" the prince asks quietly. "What any loving son would do. Save your father from himself before he destroys everything he claims to protect." Meanwhile, leagues to the west, Tywin Lannister's host makes camp within a day's march of the capital. The Lord of the West has timed his arrival perfectly, close enough to influence events, but distant enough to avoid early commitment. His golden pavilion rises above the others like a banner of wealth and power. Sir Kevan approaches his brother's tent with the latest intelligence. "The siege proceeds slowly, my lord. Prince Rhaegar shows more mercy than wisdom in his conduct of the affair." Tywin's green eyes glitter with amusement. "Mercy can be a useful tool when properly applied. The prince understands that ruling requires more than conquest. And our position? The men grow restless, waiting for orders." "Patience, brother. Great events unfold before us. We move when the time serves our purposes, not before." In the northern reaches of the Riverlands, Ned Stark leads the combined forces of the North and Vale South toward the capital. The young Lord of Winterfell rides at the head of 5,000 men, their banners streaming in the wind as they make forced marches toward their destination. Jon Arryn rides beside his former ward, the old lord's weathered face showing the strain of recent events. We push the men hard, Ned. They grow weary from these long marches. Robert died believing in justice, Ned replies firmly. We dishonor his memory if we arrive too late to matter. The northern army presses on through muddy roads and across swollen streams. Behind them march lords whose sons died at the Trident, yet they follow the young wolf because honor demands it. The rebellion may be broken, but it is not yet dead. As midnight approaches, Rhaegar walks the siege lines alone, checking on his soldiers and thinking about impossible choices. The men sleep fitfully in their tents, knowing that tomorrow may bring the assault they all dread. Fighting fellow countrymen feels different from battling foreign enemies. A messenger arrives with word from Stannis Baratheon requesting a meeting under flags of truce. The young lord wants to discuss terms for joint action against the Mad King. Rhaegar agrees to the meeting, knowing it may be his last chance to prevent the city's destruction. In the Red Keep, Aerys orders pyromancers to begin preparing wildfire caches throughout the city. The Mad King speaks of burning King's Landing to ash rather than letting it fall to his son. Green flames dance in his throne room as he watches and laughs at private jokes only he understands. Jaime Lannister stands guard nearby, his white cloak feeling heavier with each mad pronouncement from the Iron Throne. The young knight begins to understand that his vows may conflict with each other. Protecting the king may require protecting the realm from the king. Dawn brings news that changes everything. Scouts report Tywin Lannister's approach from the west, while Ned Stark's forces appear on the northern horizon. 4 armies now converge on the capital like the points of a compass, each seeking different outcomes from the same conflict. Rhaegar stands once more atop his hill and surveys the gathering forces. The moment of choice approaches rapidly. Soon he must decide whether to be a dutiful son or a just king. The two roles, he realizes with growing certainty, cannot coexist. The siege of King's Landing enters its most dangerous phase as political loyalties fracture and moral certainties crumble. In the distance, the Red Keep's towers rise like bloody spears against the sky, sheltering a madman who holds the realm's fate in his fire-scarred hands. Dawn brings fire and steel to the Blackwater as Stannis Baratheon's fleet storms up the river toward King's Landing. 30 warships cut through the grey waters like hungry wolves, their black sails billowing with the morning wind. The young Lord of Storm's End stands on his flagship's deck, his 16-year-old face set in grim determination as he watches the capital's defences grow larger with each passing moment. "Signal the attack," Stannis commands his captain. "We break their line and land our forces behind the siege." The Battle of Blackwater Bay erupts in flame and fury as the Baratheon fleet crashes into Rhaegar's river defences. Fireships blaze across the water while catapults hurl stones and pitch from both sides. The harbour fills with smoke and screaming as ships ram each other in desperate combat. Stannis draws his sword and leads the charge as his flagship grapples with a loyalist vessel. Steel rings against steel as sailors and soldiers clash on blood-slicked decks. The young lord fights with the mechanical precision that will define him in years to come, his blade cutting through enemy ranks like winter wind. "For Robert," he shouts as he cuts down a dragon knight. "For justice and honor." Meanwhile, at the harbour's edge, Rhaegar receives urgent reports from his naval commanders. The Dragon Prince stands in his silver armour, watching the battle unfold, violet eyes calculating costs and consequences as ships burn around him. "Your Grace," Lord Connington reports breathlessly. "Lord Stannis has broken through our outer line. His forces land on the southern shore in significant numbers." Rhaegar nods grimly. The young Baratheon shows his brother's courage, if not his size. "Pull back our remaining ships to the inner harbour. We cannot afford to lose more vessels in open water combat. The prince spurs his destrier toward the harbour gate, where the first Baratheon soldiers already storm ashore. His sworn swords follow as he rides to meet this new threat personally. The time for siege warfare has ended. Now comes the test of steel and blood. In the Red Keep's throne room, King Aerys watches the battle through arrow slits with manic glee. The Mad King claps his hands each time a ship explodes, laughing at the destruction spreading across his harbour. His overgrown fingernails click against stone as he turns to address his terrified courtiers. "Look how they burn!" he shrieks with delight. "Fire ships and firemen dancing on fire water. This is what happens to those who defy their king." Grand Maester Pycelle approaches carefully, his chains jingling with each step. "Your Grace, perhaps we should consider the safety of the civilian population. The battle spreads toward the lower city." Aerys whirls on the old Maester with wild eyes. "Safety! Safety! Let them burn with the rest! Traitors and loyalists alike, fire cleanses all sins." Near the Iron Throne, Sir Jaime Lannister watches this display with growing horror. The 17-year-old knight has witnessed many of his king's mad pronouncements, but this celebration of destruction chills him to the bone. His white cloak feels heavier with each maniacal laugh from the ancient seat. The king suddenly grabs Jaime's arm with clawed fingers. "Fetch the pyromancers, boy. I want to light the caches beneath the city. Let green flames join the red ones dancing in my harbour." Jaime's green eyes widen in shock. "Your Grace, the wildfire caches. They would destroy half the city. Thousands of innocents would die." "Innocents?" Aerys's voice rises to a shriek. "There are no innocents when dragons fight. Burn them all, I say. Burn them all!" At the harbour gate, the battle reaches desperate intensity as Stannis' forces storm the ancient portal. Baratheon soldiers swing from ship masts onto the stone walls, while defenders rain down arrows and boiling oil. The gate's massive iron bars groan under the assault of ram ships driven by desperate men. Stannis himself leads the assault, his sword flashing as he cuts through the gate's defenders. Despite his youth, he fights with mechanical fury, each strike calculated for maximum effect. His men follow their grim lord through gaps in the defences, pushing deeper into the lower city. "Hold the gate!" Rhaegar shouts as he arrives with reinforcements. "Do not let them break through." But it is too late. The harbour gate splinters under renewed assault as fire ships explode against its ancient stones. Baratheon soldiers pour through the breach like water through a broken dam, their battle cries echoing off the narrow streets beyond. Street fighting erupts throughout the lower city as two armies clash among shops and taverns. Citizens flee screaming as swords ring against shields in their doorways. The smell of smoke and blood fills the air while ravens circle overhead, drawn by the promise of carrion. Rhaegar leads his guards through the twisting streets, seeking to contain the Baratheon advance before it reaches the middle city. His silver armour gleams as he cuts down enemy soldiers, but for every one that falls, two more seem to take their place. "Your Grace!" Sir Barristan calls out. "Lord Stannis pushes toward the Sept of Baelor with the main force." The Dragon Prince curses under his breath. If Stannis takes the Sept, he gains a symbolic victory that could inspire others to join his cause. Rhaegar spurs his destrier forward, determined to meet this threat personally. In the Red Keep, Lord Varys slips through shadowed corridors as the battle rages outside. The spider moves with practiced stealth toward the king's chambers, knowing that desperate times require desperate measures. The wildfire caches beneath the city represent a threat greater than any army. He finds Aerys in his solar, frantically scribbling orders for the pyromancers. The Mad King's hair hangs in greasy tangles as he mutters about fire and blood, his cracked fingernails scratching across parchment. "Your Grace," Varys purrs softly. "Surely wisdom suggests restraint. The battle may yet turn in our favour without resorting to extreme measures." Aerys looks up with wild eyes. "Wisdom? What wisdom is there in mercy, Spider?" My enemies burn my ships and storm my gates. Let them taste dragonfire for their insolence. And the innocent people caught between the armies, your grace's own subjects? Subjects who harbour traitors deserve no better than traitors themselves. The king's voice rises to a shriek. Burn them all and let the gods sort the loyal from the disloyal. Meanwhile, in the streets below, Rhaegar finally corners Stannis near the Sept steps. The two men circle each other, while their armies clash around them, brother-in-law facing brother-in-law across a field of blood and honour. "Lord Stannis," Rhaegar calls out, "your brother fought bravely at the Trident. There is no shame in ending this here." The young Baratheon's jaw tightens with resolve. "Robert died believing in justice. I dishonour his memory if I yield now. And I honour mine by offering you life and pardons for your men. The realm has seen enough bloodshed." Stannis raises his sword in answer. "Then let us end it between us, as lords should. Single combat to decide the day." The two princes meet in the shadow of the Sept, while soldiers from both sides pause to watch. Steel rings against steel as Targaryen and Baratheon fight for the future of the realm. Rhaegar's blade moves like silver lightning, while Stannis fights with mechanical precision. The young Baratheon proves a skilled opponent despite his youth. His swordwork lacks Robert's raw power, but shows greater discipline and technique. For long moments the outcome remains uncertain, as both men give ground and take it in turn. Yet experience tells in the end. Rhaegar's blade finds a gap in Stannis' guard, sliding past his parry to rest against the young lord's throat. The Baratheon forces watch in tense silence as their leader stands defeated, but unbroken. "Yield," Rhaegar says quietly. "Your men need not die for lost causes." Stannis stares into violet eyes for a long moment, reading something there that gives him pause. Slowly, deliberately, he lets his sword fall to the cobblestones. "I yield," he says simply, "but I do not submit. The rebellion continues as long as injustice remains." Rhaegar steps back and sheathes his sword. "Then let us speak of justice, my lord. Perhaps we want the same things after all." The Dragon Prince's unexpected mercy sends ripples through both armies. Baratheon soldiers who expected death find themselves offered quarter instead. Some lay down their weapons immediately, while others watch their leaders with growing uncertainty. Back in the Red Keep, Aerys grows more agitated as reports reach him of his son's merciful conduct. The Mad King tears at his hair and shrieks about weakness and betrayal, demanding that the pyromancers begin their work immediately. Jaime Lannister stands frozen as the king's rage reaches new heights. The young knight understands that he faces an impossible choice: obey his sworn king or save the city from destruction. His white cloak has never felt heavier than in this moment of terrible decision. As afternoon shadows lengthen over King's Landing, the Battle of Blackwater Bay winds down to an uneasy truce. Stannis' forces have been contained, but not destroyed, while Rhaegar's mercy has won him unexpected respect from his enemies. Yet in the depths of the Red Keep, madness prepares to unleash horrors that will dwarf any battle. King Aerys II plots destruction that would consume loyal and rebel alike, while a young knight wrestles with vows that may conflict with the very realm they were sworn to protect. The Dragon Prince has won another victory through honor and mercy, but the greatest test still awaits. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies wear crowns, and the hardest battles are fought not against strangers, but against the madness that sits too close to power. Fire and water have mixed in the harbor, creating steam that rises toward grey skies like the spirits of the fallen. Tomorrow will bring new choices and new consequences as the Game of Thrones reaches its most desperate hour. 2 days after the Battle of Blackwater Bay, a new army appears on the horizon, like a golden storm. 15,000 men march toward King's Landing under crimson banners, their steel gleaming in the afternoon sun. At their head rides Tywin Lannister, Lord of the West, his golden hair catching the light as he surveys the siege lines spread before the capital. The old lion has timed his arrival perfectly. Rhaegar's forces hold the northern approaches while Stannis controls the harbour. The city burns in places where the recent fighting left its mark, and everyone waits to see which side the Westerlands will choose. Rhaegar receives word of the approaching host while treating with Stannis in his command pavilion. The Dragon Prince reads the dispatch twice before setting it aside with careful deliberation. His violet eyes show no surprise. He has expected this moment since the siege began. "Lord Tywin comes at last," he says to the young Baratheon lord seated across from him. The question becomes whether he comes as friend or foe. Stannis' jaw tightens with characteristic grimness. The Lannisters serve only themselves. Whatever side they choose, they will demand a heavy price for their support. Meanwhile, within the Red Keep's throne room, King Aerys receives news of the Lannister approach with manic celebration. The Mad King dances around his ancient seat, his unwashed hair flying as he shrieks his joy to the terrified courtiers. "The lions come to save their king," he declares, clapping his hands together. "Tywin remembers his loyalty at last. Open the gates and let my champions enter." Grand Maester Pycelle approaches carefully, his aged face creased with worry. "Your Grace, perhaps caution would be wise. Lord Tywin's intentions remain unclear." "Unclear?" Aerys whirls on the old master with wild eyes. "He brings 15,000 swords to defend his rightful king. What could be clearer than loyalty rewarded?" Near the Iron Throne, Sir Jaime Lannister watches his father's arrival with growing dread. The 17-year-old knight knows Tywin better than anyone in this room. The Lord of the West never acts from simple loyalty or sentiment. Everything he does serves Lannister interests first and foremost. Tywin approaches the city gates under a flag of truce, accompanied only by a small escort of household guards. His green eyes take in the siege positions and defences with the calculating gaze of a master tactician. The golden lion on his surcoat seems to prowl across the fabric with each step of his destrier. "Open in the name of House Lannister," calls his herald. "The Lord of the West comes to serve his king." The gates of King's Landing swing wide at Aerys' direct command. Rhaegar watches from his distant pavilion as his grandfather rides into the city with measured dignity. Every instinct tells the Dragon Prince that disaster approaches, yet he cannot act without seeming to betray his own family. In the throne room, Aerys sits upon the Iron Throne as Tywin enters with formal ceremony. The Lord of the West advances to the proper distance before dropping to one knee in a perfect display of submission. His golden cloak spreads around him like a pool of molten metal. "Your Grace," Tywin says in his rich voice, "House Lannister comes to serve the crown in its hour of need." Aerys leans forward eagerly, his cracked fingernails clicking against the ancient metal. "At last, my old friend remembers his duty. Tell me, Tywin, how shall we crush these rebels who dare threaten their king?" Tywin rises smoothly and meets the Mad King's gaze without flinching. "With wisdom and strength, Your Grace. The realm requires careful management in these troubled times." Something in the Lord's tone makes several courtiers shift nervously. Lord Varys watches from the shadows with calculating eyes, while Grand Maester Pycelle wrings his hands in obvious distress. "Careful management?" Aerys' voice rises dangerously. "I care nothing for careful. I want them burned, all of them, dragonfire and wildfire, until nothing remains but ash and memories." Tywin's expression doesn't change, but Jaime sees his father's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. The young knight recognizes that particular sign of displeasure. When Tywin Lannister grows very quiet, very still, that is when he becomes most dangerous. "Wildfire, Your Grace?" the Lord of the West asks mildly. Surely conventional tactics would prove more discriminating? Discriminating? The Mad King shrieks with laughter. "Why discriminate when you can cleanse? Fire purifies everything it touches, loyal and traitor alike. Let the flames sort them out." Outside the Red Keep, Rhaegar paces his pavilion like a caged dragon. Reports arrive every few minutes, detailing his grandfather's movements within the castle. The prince knows he should act, should prevent whatever Tywin plans, yet filial duty and political necessity war in his mind. "Your Grace," Sir Barristan enters with urgent news. "Our scouts report Lord Stark's forces approaching from the north. They march in great haste, and should arrive within 2 days." The Dragon Prince nods grimly. Ned Stark brings the combined strength of the North and Vale to break the siege. With Tywin's host holding the western approaches and Stannis controlling the harbour, 4 armies will soon converge on the capital, like the points of a compass. Meanwhile, in the throne room, Tywin listens to Aerys's increasingly erratic pronouncements with growing concern. The Lord of the West has served 3 kings in his time, and he recognizes the signs of complete madness. This broken creature can no longer be reasoned with or controlled. "Your Grace speaks of fire," Tywin says carefully. "Yet perhaps mercy might serve the crown's interests better. Prince Rhaegar has shown wisdom in offering pardons to those who submit." "Mercy!" Aerys springs to his feet, spittle flying from his cracked lips. "Mercy? My son grows soft, Tywin. He pardons traitors and treats with rebels. Perhaps he needs reminding of who wears the crown." The Mad King's eyes fix on Jaime with sudden suspicion. "Your son serves in my King's Guard, does he not? Such pretty boys, these knights in white. But how far does their loyalty truly extend?" Jaime feels his father's gaze upon him and knows the moment of choice approaches rapidly. Tywin has come not to save Aerys, but to save the realm from Aerys. The question becomes whether the young knight will help or hinder that salvation. "My son serves his king with perfect loyalty," Tywin replies smoothly, "as do all true knights of the King's Guard." Aerys cackles at some private jest. Only he understands. "Loyalty. Yes, let us speak of loyalty. Bring the pyromancers. I want to see green flames dance while we discuss such noble concepts." Several courtiers exchange alarmed glances as the King's Guardsmen move to obey. Everyone in the throne room knows what Aerys means when he speaks of wildfire and dancing flames. The Mad King grows more dangerous with each passing moment. "Your Grace," Tywin interjects firmly, "surely the immediate threat of rebellion deserves our attention first. The pyromancers can wait until more pressing matters are resolved." "Wait?" The king's voice rises to a shriek. "Wait? I have waited long enough. Waited for my son to remember his place. Waited for my enemies to kneel. Waited for my friends to prove their loyalty. No more waiting." Aerys whirls toward a lever built into the throne room's wall, a mechanism that Jaime recognizes with growing horror. The wildfire caches buried beneath King's Landing can be triggered from this very room. The Mad King means to burn the city rather than lose it to his son. "Stop," Tywin commands sharply. "Your Grace, think of what you do. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people call this city home." "Innocent?" Aerys laughs maniacally. "There are no innocents when dragons fight. They chose their sides when they harbored my enemies. Let them all burn together." The king reaches for the lever with trembling hands, his cracked fingernails extended like claws. In that moment, Jaime understands that everything hinges on his next choice. Honor demands he protect his king. Duty demands he save the realm. The two commands cannot coexist. "Your Grace," the young knight says quietly, "please reconsider." Aerys turns wild eyes upon him. "Silence, boy. You swore to obey, not to counsel. Now watch as your king cleanses this realm with dragonfire." Jaime's hand moves to his sword hilt, as if guided by its own will. The blade slides from its sheath with a whisper of steel on leather. Everyone in the throne room freezes as the white-cloaked knight takes a single step forward. "I swore to protect you," Jaime says, in a voice barely above a whisper. "But I also swore to protect the innocent. Those vows need not conflict." "What are you doing?" Aerys backs away from the lever, his eyes wide with sudden fear. "Guards, seize him! The boy has gone mad!" But the guardsmen hesitate, uncertain whether to obey a mad king or trust the judgment of a Kingsguard knight. In that moment of hesitation, Jaime steps forward and drives his blade through Aerys's chest. The Mad King's scream cuts off abruptly as steel pierces his heart. He slumps against the Iron Throne, his blood running down the twisted metal like crimson tears. His wild eyes stare at nothing as life fades from them forever. Silence falls over the throne room like a heavy shroud. Courtiers stare in shock at the fallen king, while Jaime stands over the body, his sword dripping red onto the ancient stones. The boy who entered this room as a knight has become something else, entirely. "It is done," Tywin says quietly, breaking the terrible silence. "The king is dead. Long live King Rhaegar." Jaime looks at his father with hollow eyes. "I am no longer fit to wear white. You did what had to be done, my son. History will remember you as the knight who saved a city, not the one who slew a king." Outside, bells begin to toll as news of Aerys's death spreads through the Red Keep. The Mad King is dead, killed by his own Kingsguard to prevent the city's destruction. Ravens will soon carry word to every corner of the realm that the Targaryen dynasty has changed hands in the space of a single sword thrust. Rhaegar will soon learn that he is now king, though the crown comes stained with his father's blood and the terrible choices that make such blood necessary. The Game of Thrones has claimed another player, but the game itself continues, more dangerous and complex than ever before. Silence falls over the throne room, like a funeral shroud, as King Aerys II lies dead before the Iron Throne. His blood pools on the ancient stones, while courtiers stare in shocked disbelief at the fallen monarch. The Mad King's wild eyes remain open, staring sightlessly at the twisted metal seat he can never claim again. Sir Jaime Lannister stands over the corpse, his sword still dripping crimson onto the floor. The 17-year-old knight's white cloak is stained with his king's blood, marking him forever as the one who broke the most sacred of vows. His green eyes show no regret, only the hollow weight of necessary choices. "What have you done?" Grandmaster Pycelle whispers, his aged voice trembling with horror and disbelief. Jaime meets the old man's gaze without flinching. "I saved the city. The king meant to ignite the wildfire caches. 500,000 people would have died." Lord Varys emerges from the shadows, his soft shoes making no sound on the bloody stones. The spider's calculating eyes take in every detail of the scene, already planning how this moment will be recorded in histories yet to be written. "The bells must ring," Tywin Lannister says quietly, breaking the terrible silence. "The realm must know that Aerys the Mad no longer sits the Iron Throne." At his words, several courtiers rush from the throne room to spread the news. Within moments, bells begin tolling throughout the Red Keep, their bronze voices carrying word of the king's death to every corner of King's Landing. Meanwhile, in his siege camp outside the city, Rhaegar receives word of his father's death with emotions too complex for simple grief. The Dragon Prince stands in his pavilion as Ser Barristan delivers the devastating news, violet eyes reflecting the weight of sudden kingship. "How?" is all Rhaegar asks, though part of him already knows the answer. "Sir Jaime Lannister struck him down as the king reached for the lever that would trigger the wildfire caches," the old knight reports carefully. "Lord Tywin and several witnesses confirm that his grace meant to burn the city rather than lose it." Rhaegar closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. His father is dead. The crown passes to him under the worst possible circumstances. Civil war rages while the realm fractures, and now he must somehow hold it all together. "Summon the commanders," he says finally. "We ride for the Red Keep immediately." The Dragon Prince enters King's Landing, not as a conqueror, but as a son come home to claim his birthright. His silver armor gleams as he rides through streets where citizens peer from windows and doorways, uncertain what this change in kings will bring. In the throne room, A tense standoff greets Rhaegar's arrival. His father's body still lies where it fell, while Jaime stands nearby, under the watchful eyes of Lannister guards. Tywin waits with careful neutrality, while various courtiers huddle in nervous groups. Rhaegar dismounts and approaches the Iron Throne slowly, his violet eyes taking in the scene of patricide and political necessity. When he speaks, his voice carries the authority of a man born to rule. "Ser Jaime," he says quietly, "tell me what happened here." The young knight lifts his chin and meets the prince's gaze directly. "Your father meant to burn King's Landing, Your Grace. He would have killed everyone in the city rather than lose his throne. I chose to save them instead." For long moments, Rhaegar studies the boy who killed his king. Every law and tradition demands Jaime's death for this crime. Yet the prince also understands the terrible choice the young knight faced: obey a mad king's orders or save hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. "You broke your vows," Rhaegar says at last. "Yes, Your Grace." "And in breaking them, you saved the realm from madness." Jaime's eyes widened slightly at these unexpected words. He had prepared himself for execution, not understanding. Rhaegar turns to address the assembled court, his voice carrying to every corner of the throne room. "Aerys Targaryen was my father, and I grieve his passing. But he was also a king who threatened his own people with wildfire and death. Sir Jaime acted to prevent a massacre." "Your Grace," Grand Maester Pycelle approaches carefully, "the laws are clear regarding kinslaying and oath-breaking. The laws serve the realm, Maester, not the other way around." Rhaegar's tone brooks no argument. "When a king threatens to murder his subjects, those who prevent such horror serve justice, not treachery." The prince steps toward the Iron Throne, but does not yet sit upon it. "First, other matters require resolution. Lord Tywin," he says formally, "do you acknowledge my claim to the Iron Throne?" The Lord of the West drops to one knee without hesitation. "I acknowledge Rhaegar of House Targaryen, first of his name, as my rightful king." This public declaration sends ripples through the assembled crowd. With Lannister support secured, other lords begin calculating their own positions in this new reality. "Your Grace," a voice calls from the back of the throne room. Guards escort Lord Stannis Baratheon forward, the young man still bearing wounds from his recent defeat. His face shows no submission despite his captivity. Rhaegar regards his brother-in-law with measured respect. "Lord Stannis, you fought bravely for what you believed was right. I hold no grudge against men of honor." "I fought for justice," Stannis replies stiffly. "That cause does not die with kings." "Then perhaps we seek the same things," the prince suggests. "Bend the knee, and help me build a realm where justice flourishes without requiring rebellion." For a long moment, Stannis considers these words. Finally, slowly, he drops to one knee. "I acknowledge you as king, Your Grace, but I do not forget why this war began. Nor should you. The realm needs men who remember justice costs more than gold." Grand Maester Pycelle steps forward with the ancient crown of Aegon the Conqueror. The Valyrian steel circlet gleams with rubies as he holds it reverently. "Your Grace," the old maester says solemnly, "by right of birth and blood, by acclamation of the lords assembled, I proclaim you Rhaegar of House Targaryen, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the first men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and Protector of the realm." The crown settles on Rhaegar's silver hair like it was made for him. The weight feels both familiar and strange. He has prepared for this moment his entire life, yet it comes stained with tragedy and conflict. "My first command as king," Rhaegar announces, "is the immediate disposal of all wildfire caches hidden beneath King's Landing. Such weapons have no place in a just realm." Several pyromancers step forward, nervously to acknowledge this order. The green flames that threatened the city will trouble it no more. "My second command is a general amnesty for all who participated in the recent rebellion. Any lord who bends the knee and swears fealty will be pardoned and restored to full honors." This declaration causes excited murmurs throughout the throne room. Mercy in victory often proves more powerful than conquest in defeat. Meanwhile, outside the Red Keep, ravens take wing carrying news of the dynastic change to every corner of Westeros. The Mad King is dead. Long live King Rhaegar. Each message carries different meaning to different recipients. In the northern camp, Ned Stark receives word of Aerys's death with mixed emotions. The young Lord of Winterfell reads Rhaegar's offer of peace terms, while calculating what this means for Lyanna's fate and Robert's memory. The Dragon Prince offers amnesty and negotiation, he tells Jon Arryn. Perhaps we can end this without more bloodshed. The old Lord of the Vale nods thoughtfully. Rhaegar has shown wisdom and mercy in victory. Such kings make better neighbors than conquerors. As evening falls over King's Landing, Rhaegar holds his first small council meeting as king. The throne room has been cleared of blood and filled with maps and reports as the new monarch begins the delicate work of healing a fractured realm. The immediate crisis passes, Lord Varys reports in his soft voice, but several challenges remain. Lord Stark's forces approach from the north, and various houses throughout the realm await word of your intentions. Rhaegar studies the maps spread before him, violet eyes tracing roads and borders that define his kingdom. Send ravens to all remaining rebel lords. Offer them the same terms we offered Lord Stannis. Bend the knee and receive full pardons. And if they refuse? Tywin asks pragmatically. Then we remind them that mercy offered freely becomes justice delayed when spurned. The king's voice carries steel beneath the silk. But I believe most men prefer peace to war when given honest choices. Ser Jaime stands guard near the throne, still wearing his stained white cloak, despite everything that has changed. Rhaegar notices his discomfort and addresses it directly. Ser Jaime, you saved this city and its people. That service weighs heavier than any broken vow. Your place in the King's Guard is secure, if you wish it. The young knight looks up in surprise. Your Grace, I killed your father. You prevented a massacre. History will remember that choice, not the vows it required you to break. As the council meeting continues into the night, King Rhaegar I begins the long work of transforming rebellion into reconciliation. Ravens fly to every lord in the realm carrying offers of peace. The wildfire caches beneath the city are found and destroyed. Plans take shape for rebuilding what war has damaged. The Mad King is dead, slain by his own protector to save the realm from madness. In his place sits a young king who offers mercy to enemies and justice to subjects. The Game of Thrones continues, but perhaps with rules that serve the realm better than those who play it. Outside the Red Keep's windows, King's Landing settles into an uneasy peace. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, as lords choose between submission and continued rebellion. But tonight, for the first time in months, the city sleeps without fear of wildfire dancing in the darkness. The crown of ashes has become a crown of hope, worn by a king who understands that true power lies not in commanding fear, but in inspiring loyalty. The realm begins to heal, one choice at a time. 2 days after King Rhaegar's coronation, a raven reaches Ned Stark's marching army carrying terms that could end the rebellion forever. The young Lord of Winterfell stands in his command tent, reading the parchment by candlelight, his grey eyes reflecting the weight of impossible choices. Around him, maps and weapons speak of war, yet the letter in his hands offers peace. "What does the Dragon King offer?" asks Jon Arryn, his weathered face showing the strain of recent days. The Lord of the Vale has aged years in the weeks since Robert's death, his silver hair now thin and brittle as winter frost. Ned sets the letter aside carefully. Full pardons for all who participated in the rebellion, restoration of lands and titles, places on the small council for those who prove their loyalty." He pauses, struggling with words that taste like ashes. "And a formal apology for the wrongs done to House Stark." Lord Hoster Tully shifts in his chair, red hair streaked with premature grey from the burdens of war. "These are generous terms, my lord. More generous than any rebel army has right to expect after losing 2 major battles." "Generous," Ned repeats bitterly. "He offers me gold and honours while my sister remains his prisoner and my best friend lies dead because of his family's crimes." "Robert chose to rebel," Jon Arryn says gently. "As did we all. The consequences of that choice belong to us, not to young King Rhaegar." The tent falls silent, except for the sound of rain pattering against canvas walls. Outside, 5,000 Northern and Vale soldiers huddle around campfires, waiting for their lords to decide whether they march to war or home to peace. Ned stares at the letter again, reading between the lines for signs of deception or weakness. Yet Rhaegar's words ring with sincerity, offering not just political reconciliation, but personal accountability for his family's actions. "He requests a meeting," Ned says finally, "under flags of truce at a location of my choosing. He would speak with me personally about terms for peace." "A trap?" Hoster suggests warily. "Perhaps, or the gesture of a king who understands that some wounds require more than ravens to heal." Jon Arryn leans forward, his pale eyes serious. "What does your heart tell you, Ned? Can we trust this young dragon?" The Lord of Winterfell considers this question, while memory conjures images of Robert laughing at some shared jest, of Lyanna riding through Winterfell's courtyard with wildflowers in her hair. Both are gone now, victims of a conflict that has consumed too many innocent lives. "I will meet with him," Ned decides, "but I choose the ground, and I want answers to questions that have haunted me since this war began." 3 days later, 2 small parties converge on a hill overlooking the Trident, where this conflict first turned toward tragedy. Rhaegar arrives with only Ser Barristan Selmy and a handful of guards, his silver hair bright beneath overcast skies. His violet eyes show no fear, despite riding into what could easily become an ambush. Ned waits with similar restraint, bringing only Jon Arryn and his personal guard. The young wolf wears mail beneath his cloak and keeps his sword close, yet he cannot shake the feeling that steel will solve nothing here. The 2 men meet in the space between their forces, close enough to speak privately, yet far enough from either army to avoid accusations of treachery. For a moment they simply study each other, the grieving friend seeking justice and the newly crowned king seeking peace. "Lord Stark," Rhaegar says formally, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Your Grace," Ned replies with stiff courtesy, "I come seeking truth, not flattery." "Then you shall have truth, however painful it proves for us both." Rhaegar dismounts and approaches on foot, hands empty of weapons. The gesture speaks of either confidence or courage, perhaps both. Ned follows suit, meeting the king halfway between their guards. "I offer my personal apology for the pain my family has caused yours," Rhaegar begins without preamble. "Your father and brother died unjustly at my father's command. Robert Baratheon died by my sword in battle. These deaths weigh on my conscience, regardless of the politics that caused them." Ned's jaw tightens with barely controlled emotion. "Pretty words, Your Grace. But words do not restore the dead to life." "No, they do not. Yet they acknowledge responsibility where it belongs." The king's violet eyes hold steady. "What would you have of me, Lord Stark? What justice can I offer that might heal these wounds? The truth about my sister. Why was she taken? Where is she held? What has been done to her in your family's custody?" For a long moment, Rhaegar is silent, weighing words that will change everything between them. Finally he speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lyanna was never taken, Lord Stark. She came willingly." The words hit Ned like a physical blow. He staggers backward, grey eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Impossible. She was betrothed to Robert. She had no reason to. She had every reason. Rhaegar's voice carries pain of its own. Your sister possessed a spirit too wild for any cage, even one gilded with a crown. She saw in me something Robert could never offer, understanding of that wildness rather than attempts to tame it. You speak of love while she was promised to another. You speak of choice while breaking sacred vows and ancient customs. I speak of two people who found each other despite the expectations of others. The king steps closer, his voice urgent with need to be understood. We were married, Lord Stark. Secretly, but validly, before witnesses and gods. What exists between us is no mere dalliance, but holy union. Ned's world tilts on its axis as everything he believed crumbles into dust. Robert died fighting to rescue a sister who had chosen her own path. Thousands perished in battles fought to right a wrong that never existed. The rebellion itself stands revealed as a terrible mistake built on misunderstanding. "Where is she?" he asks hoarsely. Safe in Dawn, under the protection of trusted friends. She carries my child, Lord Stark. Your nephew or niece grows within her even as we speak. This final revelation sends Ned to his knees on the muddy ground. His sister lives. She chose this path freely. She bears the child of the man he has spent months learning to hate. Everything he fought for turns to ashes in his mouth. "Why?" he whispers. "Why not tell us the truth from the beginning? Why allow this war to consume the realm?" Rhaegar kneels beside him, close enough to touch, but respecting the distance grief requires. "Because my father was mad and would have killed her if he learned of our marriage. Because your father would never have accepted such a union while Robert's betrothal stood. Because sometimes the choice lies not between right and wrong, but between one tragedy and another. Robert died believing she was stolen from him. And I live knowing that my choice to protect her cost him his life. That burden will follow me to my grave." The two men kneel in the mud beside the river, where so much blood has been spilled, each carrying guilt that cannot be shared or absolved. Around them, armies wait for word that will determine whether the killing continues or finally ends. "What would you have me do now?" Ned asks finally. "How do I return to lords who followed me into war and tell them it was all for nothing?" "Tell them it was for love," Rhaegar suggests quietly. "Tell them that sometimes love leads to choices that appear as betrayals to those who do not understand. Your sister made such a choice. So did I. Now we must live with the consequences." Ned climbs slowly to his feet, his young face aged by revelations that have stripped away his certainties. "I want to see her. I want to hear these words from her own lips before I make any decisions about peace." "That can be arranged. But I warn you, Lyanna has changed since leaving Winterfell. Love and pregnancy have transformed the girl you remember into someone new. Then I will meet this new person and judge for myself whether she chose freely or was merely convinced to accept her circumstances." Rhaegar nods, understanding the need for such proof. "We will travel together to Dawn. You may bring guards and witnesses to ensure no deception occurs. And if I am not satisfied with what I find, then you may continue your rebellion with my blessing, though I pray it doesn't come to that." The king stands and offers his hand to help Ned rise. For a moment the young lord hesitates, then clasps the offered hand and allows himself to be pulled upright. It is a small gesture, but one that acknowledges shared humanity beneath the politics that divide them. "There is more you should know," Rhaegar says, as they walk back toward their respective forces. "I intend to make significant changes in how the realm is governed. Your sister spoke often of the North's needs and the Crown's failures to address them. Perhaps some good can come from this tragedy, if it leads to better understanding between regions. Pretty words again, Your Grace. Perhaps. But words have meaning when backed by actions. Grant me the chance to prove that this dragon seeks to serve rather than merely rule. As they part ways, both men carry the weight of revelations that have changed everything between them. Ned must now decide whether to continue a war built on misunderstandings or accept peace that acknowledges painful truths. Behind them, the Trident flows red in the evening light, its waters carrying away the certainties of youth and replacing them with the complex burdens of adult choice. Tomorrow will bring the journey to dawn and answers to questions that have tormented two families for too long. The Game of Thrones has revealed new rules tonight, rules that value truth over comfort and understanding over revenge. Whether those rules can heal the wounds torn by war remains to be seen. But for the first time since Robert's death, genuine peace seems possible. The wolf's honor demands he see this through to its conclusion, whatever that may bring. The journey to dawn takes 5 days through country scarred by war and neglect. Rhaegar and Ned ride side by side along dusty roads, their small escort maintaining respectful distance as the two men speak of past choices and future possibilities. The landscape around them shifts from the green hills of the Riverlands to the red rocks and sparse vegetation of the Dornish marches. She spoke of you often, Rhaegar says, as they crest a hill overlooking a valley where wildflowers bloom despite the seasons turning toward winter. Lyanna worried that you would blame yourself for not protecting her from choices she made freely. Ned's grey eyes remain fixed on the road ahead. I failed in my duty as her brother. That failure cost Robert his life and brought war to the realm. You could not have prevented what happened between us. Love does not ask permission from family or politics before taking root. Love, Ned repeats with bitter skepticism. You speak of love while your wife sits in King's Landing with your legitimate children. What manner of love destroys existing vows to make new ones? Rhaegar is quiet for a long moment, violet eyes distant with memory. The kind that cannot be denied or controlled, no matter the cost. Elia understands this, though it brings her pain. She knew when we married that our union served politics more than passion. And Lyanna, did she understand that she would become a second wife, hidden away while another woman bore your children and sat your throne? She understood everything and chose freely despite the complications. Your sister possessed, a will stronger than mine in many ways. The correction hangs in the air between them like a sword. Ned notices the shift in tense and feels cold dread settle in his stomach. Possessed? What has happened to her? Childbirth is dangerous for any woman, Lord Stark. More dangerous still for one carrying her first child, far from home and family. Rhaegar's voice carries carefully controlled grief. She lives, but weakly. The birth has taken much from her. They ride the rest of that day in silence, each man lost in thoughts of the woman who brought them together across such different paths. Behind them, their small escort follows like shadows, bearing witness to a reconciliation built on shared loss and mutual understanding. The Tower of Joy rises from the red desert like a lonely spear thrust into an empty sky. Built of pale stone that gleams white under the southern sun, it stands isolated among rocky hills where only scrub grass and twisted trees can find purchase. 3 banners fly from its heights, the silver dragon of House Targaryen, the purple lightning of House Dondarrion, and the falling stars of House Dane. Prince Lewin commands here with Sir Arthur Dane and Sir Oswell Went, Rhaegar explains as they approach the tower's base. Good men who understand the need for discretion and protection. Guards in mail and leather watch their approach from the tower's walls, but no challenges ring out. These men know their king, and have been expecting his arrival for days. The great wooden gate swings open as Rhaegar and his party enter the courtyard, where horses stamp and soldiers bow. Sir Arthur Dane emerges from the tower's main entrance, his legendary sword Dawn hanging at his hip. The sword of the morning's face shows the strain of long vigilance, but his bearing remains proud and sure. "Your Grace," he greets formally before turning to acknowledge Ned. "Lord Stark, welcome to the Tower of Joy, though I fear the circumstances that bring you here are bittersweet." "How is she?" Rhaegar asks without preamble. "Alive, Your Grace. Delivered of a son 3 days past. But the birth was difficult, and she has not yet regained her strength." Ned feels his heart skip at these words. His sister lives. She has borne a child. Yet something in Sir Arthur's tone suggests celebration would be premature. They climb the tower's spiral stair in silence, passing chambers where guards and servants go about their duties with hushed efficiency. The air smells of herbs and medicine, the scents that always accompany childbirth and its aftermath. At the tower's highest room, they find Lyanna Stark lying in a bed, draped with soft fabrics and surrounded by flickering candles. She appears smaller than Ned remembers, her wild beauty dimmed by exhaustion and pain. Her dark hair spreads across white pillows, while her grey eyes, so like Ned's own, track toward the door as they enter. "Brother," she says softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wondered if you would come." Ned rushes to her bedside, taking her pale hand in his own. "Lyanna, gods, we thought you were dead or worse. We fought a war thinking you had been stolen away." "I know." Tears gather in her eyes. "I know what my choices cost, and I am sorry for the pain they caused. But I am not sorry for the choice itself." Beside the bed lies a cradle, where a small form, wrapped in blue silk, sleeps peacefully. The child has dark hair like his mother, and the delicate features that might grow into either Stark or Targaryen beauty in time. "Your nephew," Lyanna says, following Ned's gaze. "Born free as I always dreamed of being, though that freedom comes with complications I did not foresee." Rhaegar approaches the cradle and gazes down at his son, with wonder mixed with grief. "He is perfect," the king says quietly, "strong and beautiful, like his mother." "And endangered by his very existence," Lyanna adds with painful honesty. "A bastard with Targaryen blood will always face those who would use him or eliminate him as threats to their own ambitions." Ned looks between his sister and the man she chose over duty and family expectation. Why? Why abandon everything for this? Robert loved you. He would have given you anything you asked. Lyanna struggles to sit up straighter, her grey eyes flashing with the spirit Ned remembers. "Robert loved an idea of me, brother, a beautiful prize to be won and displayed. He never saw the woman beneath the beauty, never understood that I needed freedom more than protection. And he did?" Ned nods toward Rhaegar. "He saw my wildness and called it strength instead of flaw. He offered partnership where Robert would have demanded submission." She pauses, breathing carefully through pain. "I regret the war that followed, but I do not regret choosing love over duty." A spasm of pain crosses Lyanna's face, and she grips Ned's hand with surprising strength. Blood appears on the sheets beneath her, bright red against white linen. The trauma of birth has taken more from her than anyone realized. "Fetch the Maester," Rhaegar commands urgently, but Lyanna shakes her head weakly. "Too late for that," she whispers. "The damage is done. But there is something you both must promise me before I can rest." Ned feels tears burning his eyes as he realizes what approaches. His sister is dying, her life bleeding away in this isolated tower far from home and family. All the anger and blame in the world cannot change this reality. "Anything," he says fiercely. "Name it, and it shall be done." Lyanna's gaze moves between her brother and her husband with desperate urgency. The boy. He must be protected. Hidden. If his true parentage becomes known, Others will use him as a weapon against you both. He is my son, Rhaegar protests. I would acknowledge him and make him my heir after Aegon, and ensure his death before his 5th name day. Lyanna's voice carries steel despite her weakness. Your enemies would see him as a threat to legitimate succession. My enemies would see him as proof of stark dishonor. He needs protection that neither of our names can provide. Ned understands before she speaks the solution aloud. You want me to claim him as my bastard. A northern lord's bastard son draws no special attention. He could live freely, grow strong, perhaps even serve the realm with honor when he comes of age. She grips both men's hands with fading strength. Promise me this. Promise me my son will live. Rhaegar struggles with the request, paternal pride warring with practical wisdom. To deny my own child is to give him the chance at life and happiness that acknowledging him would steal away. Lyanna's voice grows fainter with each word. Please, for love of me, let him be Ned's bastard rather than your target. The two men exchange a long look over her bed. In that moment, former enemies recognize each other as fathers and brothers, bound by shared grief and common purpose. I swear it, Ned says formally. By the old gods and the new, I will raise your son as my own blood and protect him from all who would harm him. And I swear to keep his true parentage secret, Rhaegar adds reluctantly. Though it pains me to deny him his birthright, I acknowledge the wisdom of your counsel. Lyanna smiles for the first time since they entered the room. His name, I would call him Jon, after Jon Arryn, who fostered you both with honor. Jon Snow, Ned agrees. My bastard son, born of some forgotten encounter during the war. Jon Snow, she repeats, tasting the name. Yes, that will serve him better than Jon Targaryen ever could. As the sun sets over the Dornish mountains, Lyanna Stark closes her eyes for the final time. She dies as she lived, on her own terms, having secured her child's future through her own strength of will. The room fills with grieving silence as both men mourn the woman who brought them together and taught them the price of love. They bury her the next morning in a simple grave marked with cairn stones in the Dornish fashion. No grand sepulchre or elaborate ceremony. Lyanna had requested simplicity over spectacle even in death. Both men speak words over her grave, honoring the sister and wife who changed their understanding of duty and sacrifice. The boy comes with me to Winterfell, Ned says, as they prepare to leave the tower. I will tell no one his true parentage, not even my future wife or children. And I will ensure no harm comes to him from those who might suspect, Rhaegar promises. He is my blood, whatever name he bears. They part as friends rather than enemies, united by shared loss and common purpose. The rebellion that began with Lyanna's disappearance ends with her death and her final gift, a son who will grow up free from the burdens of royal blood, protected by the love of two fathers who learned to set aside their differences for a greater good. The Tower of Joy stands empty now, its purpose fulfilled. In years to come, men will wonder what happened in that isolated place to transform hatred into respect and enemies into allies. The truth lies buried with Lyanna in the red earth of dawn, a secret that two honorable men will carry to their graves. Jon Snow sleeps peacefully in his uncle's arms as they ride north toward Winterfell, unaware that his first days of life have already shaped the realm's future through choices made in love and sacrifice. Behind them, the king rides south toward King's Landing, carrying his own grief and the knowledge that some victories cost more than defeats. The Game of Thrones has claimed another player, but from her sacrifice comes hope for a future where love might matter more than politics, and children might grow up free from the sins of their fathers. In the end, perhaps that is victory enough. 3 weeks after the Tower of Joy, the bells of King's Landing ring out across the 7 kingdoms as Rhaegar Targaryen prepares for his formal coronation. The great sept of Baelor has been transformed for this momentous occasion, its crystal walls gleaming with hundreds of candles, while banners from every great house hang from the rafters. Representatives from across the realm gather to witness the forging of a new era. King Rhaegar stands at the sept's altar, wearing robes of black and red, the ancient crown of Aegon, the Conqueror, resting on a velvet cushion beside him. His silver hair catches the light as he surveys the assembled lords and ladies who have come to swear fealty or bear witness to this historic moment. In the front rows sit those whose presence carries the greatest meaning. Lord Eddard Stark wears the grey and white of House Stark, his young face solemn as he prepares to end his rebellion with public submission. Beside him, Jon Arryn bears the moon and falcon of the Vale, ready to assume new duties in service to a king he once opposed. Today marks not just a coronation, Rhaegar begins, his voice carrying clearly through the packed sept, but a reconciliation. Too much blood has been spilled in recent months. Too many good men have died for causes that might have been resolved through understanding rather than warfare. The High Septon approaches with measured dignity, his crystal crown catching light as he raises the ancient crown of kings. Who comes before the seven to claim the Iron Throne? Rhaegar of House Targaryen, rightful heir to Aegon the Conqueror, comes to claim his birthright and swear service to the realm, comes the formal response. But before the ceremony continues, Rhaegar does something unprecedented. He turns to face the assembled lords directly, addressing them not as subjects, but as partners in governance. "I do not claim this throne through conquest alone," he declares. "Nor do I demand your fealty through fear or tradition. I ask for your support in building a realm that serves all its people, from the highest lord to the humblest farmer." Murmurs ripple through the sept at these words. Kings traditionally demand submission. They do not request cooperation. Yet something in Rhaegar's manner suggests strength rather than weakness in this approach. Lord Eddard Stark rises from his seat and walks forward to kneel before the altar. The young Lord of Winterfell's voice carries clearly as he speaks the words that formally end the rebellion. "I, Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, do hereby swear fealty to King Rhaegar, first of his name. I pledge my sword, my house, and my honor to the service of the realm." The sight of a Stark lord kneeling willingly to a Targaryen king sends waves of significance through the assembled crowd. If Ned Stark can find peace with the Dragon King, perhaps lasting reconciliation truly is possible. "Rise, Lord Stark," Rhaegar commands gently. "Your loyalty honors the Iron Throne, but more importantly, it honors the realm we both seek to serve." Jon Arryn follows, his aged voice strong despite recent trials. "I, Jon of House Arryn, Lord of the Eyrie and Defender of the Vale, do swear fealty to King Rhaegar and accept the position of Hand of the King, should his grace find me worthy. Your wisdom guided my youth, Lord Arryn. I can think of no better counselor to help guide this realm toward peace and prosperity." One by one, the great lords approach to offer their oaths. Some come eagerly, sensing opportunity in the new reign. Others approach with visible reluctance, bending the knee because circumstances leave no alternative. All are received with courtesy and respect rather than triumph or condescension. When Stannis Baratheon's turn arrives, the young lord stands stiffly before addressing his new king. "I, Stannis of House Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End, do swear fealty to King Rhaegar. I served my brother's cause with honor. I will serve the realm's cause with equal dedication." "Your brother fought for justice, Lord Stannis. That fight continues under different banners but with the same noble purpose. Storm's End remains yours, with all rights and privileges that lordship entails." The formal coronation proceeds with ancient rituals observed for 3 centuries. The High Septon places the crown upon Rhaegar's head while invoking the blessings of the Seven. Sacred oils anoint the new king's forehead as prayers rise to gods both old and new. Long live the king! The cry goes up from hundreds of throats, echoing through the sept and spilling into the streets beyond, where common folk celebrate with wine and song. Yet the Lord Arryn will serve as hand, the king announces. Lord Stark, I name you Master of Laws, charged with reforming our legal system to better serve all citizens. Lord Tywin, your expertise with coin and administration makes you invaluable as Master of Coin. Tywin Lannister inclines his golden head in acknowledgement. Your grace honors me. I pledge to restore the crown's finances while funding the reconstruction efforts the realm requires. Lord Stannis, your naval expertise and understanding of justice make you ideal as master of ships. The royal fleet requires strong leadership to protect our coasts and trade routes. The young Baratheon lord's jaw tightens with determination. The fleet will serve the realm's interests, your grace. Pirates and smugglers will find no sanctuary in our waters. Grandmaster Pycelle retains his position through long experience, while Lord Varys continues as Master of Whisperers, his network of spies proving too valuable to discard, despite past loyalties. The small council represents a careful balance of former rebels and loyalists, bound together by shared commitment to effective governance. Our first priority must be reconciliation, King Rhaegar declares as the council settles into its work. I hereby issue the Edict of Reconciliation, granting full pardons to all who participated in the recent rebellion, provided they swear renewed fealty to the Iron Throne. A wise measure, your grace, Jon Arryn agrees. Mercy in victory often proves more lasting than punishment. Our second priority is reconstruction. Lord Tywin, I want comprehensive reports on war damage throughout the realm. We will fund rebuilding efforts for destroyed villages, compensation for farmers who lost crops, and support for families who lost breadwinners in the fighting. The Lord of the West nods approvingly. Such measures will cost significant gold, your grace, but they represent sound investment in the realm's future stability. Third, we must reform laws that contributed to this conflict. Lord Stark, I charge you with reviewing our legal codes for inequities that might breed future resentment. Justice must be available to all, not just those with gold or titles. Ned shifts uncomfortably with the magnitude of this task. Your grace, such reforms could take years to implement properly. Then we begin today and work steadily toward that goal. Change that lasts requires patience and persistence, not dramatic gestures that crumble under pressure. As evening falls over the capital, the small council continues its work by candlelight. Maps spread across tables show regions requiring attention, while ledgers detail the crown's financial resources. For the first time in months, the government of Westeros functions with purpose and unity, rather than paranoia and conflict. In his private chambers later that night, King Rhaegar stands alone before a window overlooking the city. The weight of kingship settles heavy on his shoulders as he contemplates the magnitude of the task ahead. Healing a realm wounded by civil war requires more than good intentions. It demands wisdom, patience, and the ability to transform former enemies into partners. A soft knock interrupts his thoughts. Sir Barristan enters with the evening's final reports from across the realm. Your Grace, word comes from the north that Lord Stark's bannermen have accepted your peace terms. The Riverlands report similar acceptance among houses that supported the rebellion, and those who remain reluctant. Fewer each day, Your Grace. Your mercy in victory speaks louder than threats ever could. Rhaegar nods, understanding that his approach carries risks as well as benefits. Some interpret mercy as weakness, yet those same critics often prove most eager to serve when they discover strength behind the gentleness. Sir Barristan, tell me honestly, do you believe this peace will hold? The old knight considers carefully before answering. You offer something no king has provided in living memory, Your Grace. Hope that governance can serve the governed, rather than merely ruling them. Such hope, once planted, grows difficult to uproot. Even when planted in soil still damp with blood from recent conflicts. Especially then, men who have seen war's true cost appreciate peace's true value. Throughout the Red Keep, similar conversations take place as former enemies learn to work together toward common goals. In the Tower of the Hand, Jon Arryn reviews legal precedents with Ned Stark, their shared commitment to justice bridging past political divisions. In the Counting Chambers, Tywin Lannister calculates resources required for reconstruction, his practical mind focused on problems rather than grudges. Meanwhile, in the city below, common folk celebrate their new king with cautious optimism. The Mad King's death ended their fear of wildfire and arbitrary execution. King Rhaegar's promises of justice and reconstruction offer hope for better times ahead. Yet challenges remain. Some lords who bent the knee publicly may harbor private resentments. The realm's finances require careful management to fund promised reforms. Foreign powers watch for signs of weakness during this transition period. As midnight approaches, King Rhaegar finally retires to chambers he once shared with dreams of ruling wisely. Tonight, those dreams begin their transformation into reality, one careful decision at a time. The crown no longer represents just power, but responsibility, to subjects who deserve protection, to former enemies who deserve mercy, and to future generations who deserve peace. The Game of Thrones continues, but perhaps with rules that serve the realm better than those who play it. In council chambers and throne rooms, former rebels work alongside former loyalists to build something greater than either faction could achieve alone. Outside the Red Keep's walls, King's Landing sleeps peacefully for the first time in months. Tomorrow will bring new challenges as the long work of governance continues. But tonight, the realm rests under the protection of a king who understands that true strength lies not in commanding fear, but in inspiring hope. The dragon's fire burns bright but controlled, warming the realm without consuming it. 6 months after his coronation, King Rhaegar stands on the battlements of the Red Keep, watching the sunrise paint King's Landing gold and crimson. The great city spreads below him like a living tapestry, its streets bustling with merchants and craftsmen as trade flows once again through the realm's heart. Smoke rises from countless chimneys, while ships crowd the harbor, their sails bright with the banners of distant ports. The realm heals. After months of war and uncertainty, the Seven Kingdoms find their rhythm under a king who rules with wisdom rather than fear. Construction projects rise from the ashes of conflict, while roads once choked with refugees now carry merchants seeking profit in a land at peace. "Your Grace," comes a familiar voice behind him. Lord Eddard Stark approaches, no longer the grieving young rebel, but a trusted advisor whose northern wisdom has proved invaluable in bridging the realm's many divisions. "Lord Stark, what news from the small council this morning?" "Good tidings, Your Grace. The harvest reports from the Reach show record yields. Lord Tywin's financial reforms have restored the crown's coffers to health. Trade with the free cities increases each month as word spreads of our stability." Rhaegar nods with satisfaction. The difficult early months of his reign, when every decision faced scrutiny from former enemies learning to trust their new king, have given way to efficient governance built on mutual respect rather than fear. And from the north? My brother Benjen writes that Winterfell prospers. The child grows strong and healthy under my family's care. Ned's careful words refer to Jon Snow without speaking the dangerous truth aloud. The bastard boy thrives in the cold northern castle, unaware that his real father rules the Seven Kingdoms from a throne built of swords. In Winterfell's nursery, the infant sleeps peacefully, while his supposed father's servants attend his needs. Jon Snow will grow up believing himself the bastard son of Honorable Ned Stark, protected by that lie from those who would use his true heritage as weapon or target. Love and safety matter more than royal blood for a child too young to understand politics. Meanwhile, in the Tower of the Hand, momentous news arrives by raven from Sunspear. Princess Elia writes to her husband with words that will reshape the succession and secure the dynasty's future. Rhaegar reads the letter privately in his solar, violet eyes lighting with joy as he absorbs its contents. His wife carries another child, a son or daughter who will grow up in a realm at peace, raised by parents who understand the cost of wisdom and the value of mercy. "Maester Pycelle," the king calls, "prepare ravens for all the great houses. Princess Elia expects our second child. The realm will celebrate this blessing with tournaments and festivals worthy of such happy news." The Grand Maester bows deeply, his chains jingling with pleasure. "Your Grace honors the realm with such tidings. Shall I announce a great tournament to mark the occasion?" "Yes, but not merely for celebration, for reconciliation. Let former enemies compete side by side in contests of skill rather than battles of hatred. Show the realm that strength serves joy better than sorrow." Throughout the Red Keep, this news spreads with the speed of wildfire, yet this flame brings warmth rather than destruction. Servants smile as they go about their duties, while lords already plan their participation in the coming festivities. In the newly constructed royal library, King Rhaegar pursues another passion that sets his reign apart from those who came before. Scrolls and books from across the known world fill shelves that stretch from floor to vaulted ceiling. Maesters and scholars work alongside copying texts and expanding the realm's store of knowledge. "Learning serves the realm as surely as swords," Rhaegar explains to visiting lords who question such expenditures. "A king who promotes wisdom among his subjects rules better than one who keeps them ignorant." The project draws support from unexpected quarters. Tywin Lannister, despite his pragmatic nature, recognizes the value of educated administrators and sponsors copying efforts for legal texts. Stannis Baratheon contributes nautical charts and navigation manuals that improve trade and exploration. Even former rebels find purpose in this new world. Lord Stannis has proved his worth as master of ships, his rigid sense of justice perfectly suited to hunting pirates and protecting merchants. His fleet patrols the narrow sea with mechanical efficiency, while his reforms to naval law reduce corruption in port cities. "Duty," Stannis says, when praised for his achievements. "I serve the realm's interests, not my own preferences. The crown deserves loyal service, regardless of past conflicts." The Kingsguard itself undergoes transformation under Rhaegar's guidance. No longer merely sworn swords protecting royal persons, the White Cloaks now carry responsibility for defending the innocent throughout the realm. Sir Barristan leads knights who intervene in local conflicts and ensure justice reaches common folk as well as lords. Sir Jaime Lannister, once haunted by his necessary crime, finds redemption in service that matches his skills with his conscience. The young knight leads patrols that protect travelers, while hunting bandits who prey on those weakened by war's aftermath. "I killed a king to save a city," Jaime explains to new recruits. "Never forget that our vows serve the realm's people, not just the crown's wishes." As autumn deepens toward winter, the realm's prosperity becomes undeniable. Markets overflow with goods, while granaries store surplus grain against leaner times ahead. The crown's treasury, once drained by war and madness, now funds projects that benefit all subjects, rather than enriching only the wealthy. In throne room sessions, King Rhaegar demonstrates the accessible justice that defines his reign. Common petitioners receive the same attention as great lords, while complaints are heard regardless of the complainant's birth or wealth. "Justice delayed becomes justice denied," the king reminds his courtiers. "We serve the realm best when we serve all its people equally." A blacksmith from Flea Bottom receives royal protection from a lord who refuses to pay for commissioned weapons. A farmer's widow gains compensation when soldiers damaged her crops during the recent conflict. A merchant secures safe passage for trade caravans threatened by local bandits. Each decision builds the foundation of a reign based on law rather than whim, justice rather than favor. Lords who expected preferential treatment learn that the Dragon King's fire burns equally bright for all who seek his protection. Yet perhaps the most telling changes occur in private moments, when crowns and councils fade before simple human connections. In the royal nursery, Princess Rhaenys plays with wooden toys while her father reads stories of heroes and adventures. "Tell the dragon story again, Papa," the little girl requests, her dark eyes bright with imagination. Rhaegar lifts his daughter onto his lap, setting aside the cares of kingship to focus on fatherhood. Once upon a time, a dragon learned that true strength comes not from breathing fire, but from knowing when to be gentle. The story he tells speaks of dragons who protect rather than destroy, of kings who serve rather than simply rule, of power used for building rather than conquest. Through such tales, he shapes the values of the next generation while healing his own heart from the losses that brought him to this throne. Outside the nursery windows, King's Landing settles into evening peace. Merchants close their shops while families gather for meals earned through honest labor. Guards patrol streets made safe through justice rather than fear, while ships arrive at harbors protected by law rather than arbitrary rule. The great tournament to celebrate Princess Elia's pregnancy draws competitors from across the Seven Kingdoms. Former rebels ride alongside former loyalists in contests that celebrate skill over political loyalty. Northern knights face Dornish spears, while Reach bowmen compete with Vale archers. Lord Stark enters the melee despite his youth, fighting with the controlled fury that marked his battles during the rebellion. Yet now that fury serves sport rather than war, channeling passion into celebration rather than destruction. Stannis Baratheon participates in naval competitions that showcase the fleet's improved capabilities, while demonstrating that former enemies can compete honorably without bloodshed. His ships perform maneuvers that draw cheers from crowds who once feared the sight of approaching sails. "See how they celebrate together," Rhaegar observes to his small council as they watch the festivities. Former enemies now vie in friendship rather than hatred. This is how realms heal, through shared joy rather than imposed peace. As winter approaches, ravens carry news to distant corners that speak of prosperity, returning to lands scarred by conflict. The north reports successful harvests, while the riverlands rebuild villages burned during the fighting. The west's mines produce ore for peaceful construction rather than weapons of war. In dawn, Princess Aelia prepares for childbirth, while surrounded by family who no longer fear for her safety or their prince's loyalty. The child she carries will grow up knowing both parents while inheriting a realm built on reconciliation rather than conquest. That night, as King Rhaegar walks the Red Keep's corridors, he passes chambers where former enemies work together on the realm's business. In the Tower of the Hand, Jon Arryn reviews legal reforms with Ned Stark while planning infrastructure projects for the coming year. The counting chamber shows Tywin Lannister balancing ledgers that record prosperity rather than debt, his golden head bent over figures that speak of trade increasing and tax burdens decreasing through efficient administration. Meanwhile, in chambers throughout the castle, servants and soldiers go about duties performed with pride rather than fear. The Mad King's reign of terror has given way to governance based on law and mutual respect. As midnight approaches, Rhaegar stands once more upon his battlements, gazing out at a realm finally at peace. The Game of Thrones continues, but perhaps with rules that serve those who live within the game's boundaries, rather than merely those who play it. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, as it always does for kings and kingdoms. Yet tonight the realm rests under the protection of a dragon who learned that true strength lies not in inspiring fear, but in earning trust. The fire that once threatened to consume everything now warms all who seek its light. Far to the north, in Winterfell's nursery, an infant sleeps peacefully, while his true heritage remains hidden in the hearts of two honorable men who chose love over politics. Jon Snow will grow up free from the burdens that royal blood would bring, protected by a lie that serves truth better than facts ever could. The story that began with death at a ford ends with life flourishing throughout 7 kingdoms. In choosing mercy over vengeance and wisdom over tradition, King Rhaegar has forged a realm worthy of the songs that will celebrate this age, long after all who lived it have joined the stories themselves. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you